After denying their drivers' employee status, Uber and Lyft call them essential. Doesn't that sound more than a bit hypocritical, Dara? Logan Green? Let's jump into this great article by the LA Times. So, the role that drivers play in the success of Uber and Lyft has always been an issue that the ride-hailing companies have danced around. We know that very well. Sometimes the firms have even denied that the drivers are very important at all. So true. Last year, for instance, Uber asserted that the drivers' work was outside the usual course of Uber's business, which is serving as a technology platform for several different types of digital marketplaces. That quote, that infamous quote, was by the idiot Tony West, their legal eagle. Rideshare drivers and food delivery people should, as frontline workers, receive prioritized access to the vaccine in Phase 1B. That's their argument. The companies, moreover, were behind the successful campaign this year for Proposition 22, which barred their drivers from being designated employees under California law. That denies the drivers unemployment benefits and workers' compensation, bars them from organizing a union, and exempts the firms from wage and hour laws. Yet lately, the companies have been demanding that the drivers be classified as essential workers. Doesn't that sound more than a teensy bit hypocritical? What's driving the company's change of hearts? In a nutshell, COVID-19, more precisely the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines, which started in recent days. Both companies have asked governors and other policymakers to give their drivers vaccine priority. That's important in the near term, while the first vaccines are in very short supply and access to them is a zero-sum game for every essential worker who receives a shot. Another of putatively lower priority will have to wait. Rideshare drivers and food delivery people, including the 190,733 in California who have earned money on the Uber platform during the pandemic, should, as frontline workers, receive prioritized access to the vaccine in Phase 1B, Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi wrote in a letter to California Governor Newsom. The letter, which is similar to those the company wrote to the governors of all 50 states, cites a plan developed by the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. According to the CDC plan, Phase 1B would give essential workers vaccine priority, second only to 21 million healthcare workers, and place them on the same priority level as adults with high-risk conditions and those over 65. Those top four categories would comprise about 260 million Americans, leaving about 70 million still waiting in line. Unsurprisingly, therefore, numerous industries have started lobbying for essential classification. As my colleague Hugo Martin reported recently, policymakers have heard from labor and professional organizations for pilots, flight attendants, teachers, bus drivers, meat industry workers, and bank tellers, amongst other groups. In California, there's a move on to add journalists to that roster. Let's be clear. No one should argue that ride-hailing drivers shouldn't be given essential worker priority. Indeed, the CDC lists transportation in its non-healthcare roster of essential occupations, along with jobs in food and agriculture, policing and firefighting and manufacturing, information technology and communications, amongst a few others. Uber and Lyft make the point that their drivers have shouldered considerable responsibilities during the pandemic. Lyft praises them for transporting patients who need regular rides to and from medical appointments, providing healthcare, public safety, and other first responders with rides to work, and delivering essential goods, including meals for homebound seniors and school lunches for low-income families. What makes the company's position hypocritical isn't that they are calling their drivers essential today, but they've dismissed them as non-essential in the past. I could not agree more with that statement. Smack dead on true. Uber's assertion that driving is outside the usual course of its business came during the legislative battle over AB5, the law that ultimately required drivers and other gig workers to be given employee status. The comment was made during a news conference by that prick Tony West, Uber's chief legal officer, chief legal arsehole, and brother-in-law of Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. In August, after a state judge rejected their claims to be exempt from AB5 and ordered them to classify their drivers as employees, forthwith, Uber and Lyft threatened to pull out of California, so much for their drivers being essential during the pandemic. The judge, Ethan Schulman, called the companies out for denigrating the importance of the drivers to their business model. Their position was nonsense, he said. To state the obvious, drivers are central, not tangential to Uber and Lyft's entire ride-hailing business. Schulman's order was held in abeyance during the campaign to pass Proposition 22, which permanently exempted the companies from AB5. Uber and Lyft spent more than $120 million, how about $200 million between them to pass the obnoxious ballot measure. Gig companies DoorDash and Instacart flattened up the war chest with an additional 83. Sorry, with Instacart, it's $200 million. $205 million spent in Proposition 22 made it the costliest ballot initiative campaign in American history. By the way, how much should you trust anything these companies say? They got California voters to pass Proposition 22, in part by warning that if they had to give their drivers' employees benefits, fares would go up. Now that they've won and drivers won't receive employee benefits, Uber and DoorDash are raising fares. It's safe bet that Lyft will follow soon. Proposition 22 speaks to the notion that drivers' welfare is secondary importance to Uber, Lyft, and the other gig companies. And I really appreciate that. Is like one of the best articles I've read this month by Michael Hiltzik. Thank you so much for calling them out and saying as it is. I do want to give a huge shout out to my sponsor, Cover, Kover. You get 1 month free with my link below, right underneath this video. 1 month free Cover, the gig protection plan, portable benefits for gig workers. Starts at $7 a month, 24/7 health service, automatic mileage tracking, paid time off, sick leave, legal protection with their legal arm, Legal Rideshare. Legal Rideshare is a law firm in Chicago. They handle all cases nationwide. In case you get injured, hit them up. They handle the entire insurance claim process for you. What makes Legal Rideshare so unique is that they are the legal arm of Cover. So in case an active driver or delivery driver gets deactivated or wrongfully terminated, Legal Rideshare steps in as part of that gig protection plan, represents you, and gets you back behind the wheel. What do you think about this hypocritical nonsense of these two companies I just called out? Your feedback, please.